All right, welcome to Unapologetically Male, where we are talking about African American perspective of surviving society's stigmas, standards, and system. First, want to give a shout out to my co-host EJ Stewart, boss lady J Pope, Jennifer Pope, J Pope Connections, and this is just a podcast, interview series, just highlighting success stories of African American men who've been able to kind of be successful in their area of expertise. We had, and our guest today is Brother Lawerence Smith. Brother Lawerence Smith. And I'm gonna let him talk a little bit about himself. But once again, we want to thank you for consenting to do this interview and just kind of taking time out of your schedule, because I know this is a busy time for you and your family and just kind of in general. So we just want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedule. Now, if you could just kind of give us a little bit background of your, school, education, family, what it is that you do, and all the different things that you got going on right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was an honor when you reached out to me, and I always want to, do anything I can do to talk, to help young men and anyone, in general. So my name is Lawerence Smith, and I'm involved in a few things. First of all, I'm the head football coach at Dunbar. I've been the head football coach at Dunbar since 2007. I'm a 1992 Dunbar graduate. I bleed maroon and gold. Mm-hmm. I'm also a 20-year veteran of the Baltimore City School Police Force. I'm a detective in criminal investigations. Things about me, I'm married. I have 3 kids. My daughter's a high school teacher. My son's in culinary art school, and I have a 5-year-old daughter, and my wife is a beautiful and lovely Dr. Christina Kyle Smith. She's a superintendent of some schools in Washington, D.C. So, we have a lot of things going on. A little about myself, like I said, with the things I do, I just have a passion to help young men. That's been my thing. I grew up single mom, didn't meet my dad till I was 16 years old, and things like that. And I just didn't want to, my mom instilled in me not to be a statistic. I could tell you, things when I was a school-based officer at Dunbar and when I was there, and I always heard, the stigma of young men and young women and things like that. If a girl get pregnant mm-hmm. as a teenager, you would hear certain things about like their life is over, and their life is not over. Their life is not over. And my thing is, I always tell my guys on both ways that I'm a police officer and I'm a football coach. I can help you use football to get to college, mm-hmm. to keep you out of the juvenile justice system. That's my job. There's too many people have that, that, like, as you see, that stigma. There's too many people have that, put on them that they can't survive. I hate that when you tell young men, black men, they can't survive because they have a single mother. Mm-hmm. We sit around. I buried my mom 2 years ago. My mom was a strong woman. I was way bigger than my mom, but my mom didn't play. My mom always told me, before you go to jail, I will get rid of you myself. I will take you away from here. And to the point of, I never wanted to hurt my mom. I can tell you, like you said, when I was 13 years old, we were riding bikes. And I'll never forget, we rode by the back of an elementary school, and the window was open, and we went in to get some water. Lo and behold, at that age, we didn't know that was breaking and entering. Mm-hmm. We got arrested. And I'll never forget, they had sent 2 wagons, one for us and one for our bikes, right? If you remember, I don't know how old you are, you remember the old paddy wagons that was made like an ice cream truck with the window in the back. Uh-huh. I'll never forget, we was driving to the police station, and when we got there, whatever, I looked out the back and I saw the look on my mother's face. And I just said to myself, I would never get in trouble ever again. And I was 13 years old. And I'm telling you, and guys, I tell my football players, I got a kid right now, a defensive end. Me and him was together the other day in my truck. And his mom died when he was like 2. His father passed a few years ago.
Wow.
From something with his heart. He's being raised by his grandma down by Latrobe Projects. And I said to him, man, you got to make it. You got to make it. You cannot let anything say you can't make it. You cannot be, one time with a lot of these kids, Dwayne, they hang with guys and girls. They hang with folk that if they don't do right, they fine. They'll go back home and live with their parents, and their parents take care of them. But you got guys who don't have that.
Right.
You got guys who, if you don't make it, you in trouble. You don't have that luxury of your parents being able to take care of you the rest of your life. And, those are the things that guys got to understand, man. You got to be – my son right now, my son's 18 years old, and he's been texting me all day because he wants to go to Ocean City this weekend with his friends. It's Memorial Day weekend. They want to go hang out. So I'm trying to explain to him that I'm really not feeling it. I'm not feeling it because I know all the trouble that has been down in Ocean City over the last few years and what goes on. But he doesn't understand it. He feels dad just don't want to loosen the reins up. And I'm trying to tell him, man, you can't do that type of stuff these days, because when you do that type of stuff these days, it can end up bad, and the decision that can be made that will basically, destroy your life.
Right.
And that's what it is. But I can go on about that for days. So just shoot whatever you need to ask me.
I got you. I want to go back to you say you didn't meet your dad till you were 16. Like how has that played a part in you becoming a father and a husband and those different arenas, on a personal level? Because not meeting your dad till 16 can be very difficult. Just kind of learning different things about life. So how were you able to manage, and what did that teach you or show you?
Well, I can tell you one thing that I always say: it teaches you that you want to be better. It teaches you want to be better. One thing about guys in my era, and I'm 46 years old, a lot of guys in my era grew up with, single family homes.
Right.
The one thing about guys in my era is if they're not in their child life, I can tell you that more likely it wasn't them, my era, my guys, because it happened to them and they don't want it to happen to their kid because they know what it feels like. So when you hear that, you always hear folks say different things. And I say to folk like, it made me better. I wanted to be there for everything. My daughter played softball. My oldest daughter played softball since she was 3. My son played baseball since he was 5. I always wanted to be there with them with everything they did. Everything. It was nothing that they wanted to do, they wouldn't do that I didn't want to be there. Family vacations, summer vacations. I want my son to see. You can go back and pick any picture of me coaching on the sideline. You will see my son on the sideline learning to be up under his father. And the thing about females is guys don't know when they got daughters. You're taught that you are the first male that your daughter is going to have a relationship with. So you are setting the stage for your daughter when she start dating and when she find a husband. So you are setting the stage because you are the first male that your daughter will have a relationship with. And those are the things that I wanted to break the cycle. I was no way that I was going to do that. I tell folk, like, I became really good friends with Ray Lewis. And I remember Ray, people don't know, Ray didn't know his father. And we had this conversation. Ray Lewis' father was great wrestler in the state of Florida. Ray was a great wrestler. The cycle was so messed up with him. He said his goal was to break all his father records, to erase his name from the record books in the state of Florida.
Wow.
And that's the type of things, the impact that have on you when you don't have your father around.
Mm.
When you were coming up, without your father, did you feel anger or any resentment towards him growing up?
Easy. I think the difference was with me was I hadn't had my father, but I had my grandfather.
Mm.
So I really didn't. My granddaddy instilled so much into me, how to be a husband, how to do certain things, how to carry yourself, So my granddad was there where a lot of people don't. So I really didn't have the time to focus on that because, like I said, I lived with my grandfather, my grandparents. So I had my granddaddy. My granddaddy, you got to think, he had his own trucking company. So, he was working, things like that. It instilled, values in me of how a father is supposed to be. You got to think my grandmother and grandfather had 13 kids. So I saw, but that was a whole nother era. Like my grandmother died, never worked a day in her life.
Wow.
My grandmom died, didn't even have a driver's license.
Wow.
That was that generation. My granddad worked. Like, you didn't sit at the table and eat until my granddad sat down and ate. My granddad didn't clean dishes. He used to get up, kiss, say good dinner, go sit down and watch TV. He wasn't picking, he'd get up, go to work, she hand him the bag, go out the door.
Right.
That's how I was raised to see my granddad. My granddad, like I said, if dinner was ready and my grandfather was upstairs, no one sat at the table until he came down. Whenever he decided to come. When he decided to come down, that's when dinner starts.
Wow.
So that's what I had growing up. Even though I didn't have my father, I had my granddad, and my the basic showed me how it's supposed to be done. Now, we know in this day and age, you ain't doing that. We know them days is over.
Them days are long gone.
Them days are long gone. But that's the way I was raised in during that time.
Yeah, that's definitely old school.
Yeah.
So those
the podcast.
Exactly.
So with that being stated, like you got your hats in many different areas, especially with the being a school officer, detective, and a coach. Like, what has there been anything that you kind of faced throughout your time that kind of maybe left a bad taste in your mouth, but you still pursued through, like you still persevered through it to kind of reach where you are now?
Oh yeah, I mean, one thing about it, and number one thing that you got to face is with us when you're talking about males, and then you're talking about black males, you got to face jealousy, and people want to pull you down. You always hear about the crabs in the barrel. And then being at Dunbar, that's a whole nother level. When I became the head football coach at Dunbar, I'll never forget. Byway is one of my biggest mentors. Can't reinvent the wheel. A lot of people try to reinvent the wheel, and that's where they get in trouble at. Mr. Wade sat me down and he told me something. He said, let me tell you something. The two jobs in Baltimore City are the most scrutinized. It's the mayor and the coach of Dunbar.
Wow.
All facts. Wow.
And like I tell folk, I could be sitting here right now and straight up, the mayor called my phone. I was in Mexico. Jack Young was the city council president. He calls my phone and says, ask me something about the football field. And those are the things that happen. You got to deal with jealousy. Folks want to pull you down. Folks want to see you fail. Folks want to see you fail. Mm-hmm. And you got to stay on that straight line because, one, you got to stay in character because you got so many people watching you. One thing what coaches don't understand when I look at youth coaches now and I look at things, you're dealing with lives. You're dealing with lives. And Mr. Wade always told me you do not compromise your integrity. Because you get so many coaches that compromise their integrity and forget the big picture. This thing, wins and losses is going to happen. Winning is going to happen. You're dealing with children's lives. Children's lives are a big thing. You are impacting their lives forever. Mm-hmm. It is so great when I look at Facebook and I get a text and I've been to a store and I'm somewhere and I see someone I coached and I see that they got a wife, a kid, they're doing good. Everybody's not going to go pro. Everybody's not going to be this big, college football star after high school. Mm-hmm. And I tell my guys, for one, you use football for one thing in high school. It's for one thing. It's to pay for college. Mm-hmm. It's to pay for college. So when you're doing that, you use football for a free college education. You get that education, you get a job, you get a wife, whatever you want, get some kids, get a family, be an outstanding citizen, get a career, and live your life. That's all it's about. And that's what I tell my guys. And I tell most of them, I just hope they don't come back to Baltimore because there's nothing here for you right now. And most of them, when they leave here, they don't come back. They're gone. And I love when I connect with them on social media and they doing so well. And that's the biggest thing. To answer your question is back, you just got to deal with jealousy, but you got to keep it moving because you're dealing with kids' lives.
I want to commend you because, being a high school football player and a little bit of college, myself, my biggest thing was always we didn't have a coach that looked like us in high school. Mm-hmm. At my school, we should have, a lot of politics in that, even though it was an all black school district, they didn't want our people coming back to help us. So I think, you being from Dunbar, playing there, going and going back, I think is so important. And I have this question because I know what impact sports had on my life. What do you say to those people that say, we shouldn't have our young black men focus so heavy on sports and, they need to be focused on other things and all of that. What do you say to those people knowing the impact sports can have on the youth?
And that's a great question because I go through it all the time when you deal with educators. Like I said, folks don't understand that how much sports brings to someone. It brings discipline. It brings discipline. For some of us, and when you're talking about the ones that look like us and kids that I deal with, it's the only way. It's the only way that they're going to make it. It's the only way. No, I didn't make the rule. I didn't set the rule, but it's the rule. All right? You got to think. If you're being able to play football, being able to play basketball, being able to play baseball, to that level, that is God-given talent, right? Now I'm going to start throwing some stuff, and I ain't going to start preaching, Wayne. My pastor told me favor ain't fair. Favor ain't fair. So when you're talking about a young man that can do this, and it's not our era. I'm a little older than y'all, but it's still that era. This is the difference. In y'all era and in my era, everybody couldn't go to school for football. Man, in 2021, you can basically step on a football field in high school, and it's some place for you to go play football in college. Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell my kids. I didn't say you can go to the University of Maryland. I didn't say everybody can go to Penn State. I said you can go to college. It might be some college you never heard about in some little town in some state. But everybody can go right now. So you use that as you can do it. You get folks that'll say, you don't want kids to just think about, no, it's not about putting all the apples in one barrel. But here's the thing. This is always tell us to folk. Always tell us to folk. My wife has a doctorate. My wife owes the federal government almost $200,000. Every year at the Mayor's Academy, the basketball academy, I teach a class called Doing the Right Thing. And I always give them a homework assignment. And the homework assignment, you always tell a young man this, and you always tell, when people say what you just said, EJ, all they got to say is, athletes are the only people that leave college debt-free.
Absolutely.
Get few to get through some academic scholarships. I tell them, I say, go back to school tomorrow and ask your teacher how much do she owe the federal government. Because if they got a free ride as a bachelor's, more likely they pay for the master's. And I tell them, because you got to think, if you don't go to Merle, none of them, people don't understand. Those small schools that are predominantly white, they have major money. And if you can play and you're a minority, you leave there for free. You go for free. And that's what it is. I got a kid named Earl Chapman. I will never forget this. Earl was my quarterback, right? Earl had he was a undersized quarterback. You know, naturally, like everybody else, he had the big D1 dreams. Son, you too small, you too short, da-da-da. Earl had great grades. I'll never forget this. We sitting in my office, and here come the door, a college recruiter from a college called Bridgewater College in Bridgewater, Virginia. I had never heard of this school in my life. I didn't even know where Bridgewater was. The coach sat down and said, son, you can come play quarterback for me. He says, every year we're a top 3 business school in the nation. He said it costs $85,000 a year to go to my school. You can go for free. Long story short, Earl went to Bridgewater, had a great career, graduated. Earl lives in South Carolina. He lives in South Carolina with his family, high school football coach, doing what he loved to do, making great money. And those are the stories where folk need to hear. And I tell you that. And the last part of this, I don't know, and this is what you tell folks. See, kids got to hear, like I coach Tavon. Those are the stories that folk want to hear. Mm-hmm. Those are the stories that folks want to hear, the NFL stories. You know, those are the stories, those are great stories, but those are great stories. But those kids cannot relate, cannot hold their lives on that NFL story. Mm-hmm. They got to hear the other side. Because it's a good chance those are the stories that they're going to get. You know what I mean? They got to hear the other story. And I tell you, it was a guy, y'all remember Ambrose Wooden?
Yep. He went
Ambrose Wooden played at Gilman.
Went to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. All right. I knew Ambrose when Ambrose was in rec ball, right? Real quick. Let me tell you this real fast. Ambrose is the greatest person to come and talk to young folks that got that dream. Coming out of high school, Ambrose was the #1 football player in the nation at Gilman. Ambrose signed with Notre Dame. When Ambrose signed with Notre Dame, they signed him as a defensive back, couldn't play quarterback. You got to think, this is the #1 player in the nation. He goes to Notre Dame, has a horrible career. Horrible career. Always bring Ambrose back to talk, even though he wasn't one of my guys. I know his dad, know him rec ball. So you know what all the kids say. Coach, why are you bringing this guy back? He didn't do nothing in college. Who was this guy? Right? When I introduced him, I said, y'all know what he do now? I said, Ambrose has a degree from the University of Notre Dame. He didn't pan out to the NFL. I said, you know what Ambrose do? I said, I want y'all to Google his name. Ambrose is the vice president of Goldman Sachs in the United Kingdom. He says to them, I make just as much money as an NFL football player without my body taking the abuse. And it shuts them all down.
Wow.
That's what they don't understand. That's the power of getting the degree, using football to pay for that degree. Everybody's not going to make it to the NFL. Small amount is going to make it. But they can't take that degree away from you because everybody can get that degree. And that's what it's about.
Wow. That's definitely a good story. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you as far as like, you know, everybody want to talk about a success story. And I'm glad you talked about like those who might not be as successful as an NFL player, but they have succeeded in, you know, a career, something that was meaningful, something that, you know, that helped them make more money. He probably make more money than most NFL players.
No, man, you got to think. I think then you played with Selby, right?
Yep, Selby was a freshman when I was senior.
Okay, so people don't know. I always bring Selby back to talk. People don't know what Selby was doing. Selby people, you know, they just what you doing? What you do? Selby went to Morgan, had an okay career, got his degree. Selby was flying around the country on Air Force One with Barack Obama. You ever see, if you were his friend on social media, you would see Selby always posting pictures from around the country. You ever wonder how Selby got there so fast? Selby was riding around the country, fly around the country with the president. See, that's what you use. That's exactly back to what EJ said. That's what you use in that football and basketball for. Selby don't want for nothing. Selby would fly around. Selby flies around the country with the president of the United States. That's what he does. That's what he does. And that's what it all boils down to. Yeah, I'm sure he wanted to be an NFL football player, but it didn't go that way. But he used football to get him what he needed to do.
Talk about if you can, talk about the impact you see the game, football or just sports in general, the impact on young men and their mental health. As myself, I played my entire life angry, similar to kind of Ray Lewis. Not in the sense of trying to break any records, but just angry and resentful. And so I used it on the field. And I noticed when I stopped being angry, I was less competitive. But talk about what you've seen in your experience and the impact that sports may have had on mental health for young men.
Well, that is not, that's not your fault. When you were taught, you got to think. I'm pretty sure you started playing at a young age. When I started coaching Pop Warner football, and that's the way you teach it. You teach it to be mean and aggressive, and you got to have this edge. You got to have a chip on your shoulder, and that's how you're taught to play the game. Things like that. And when you don't play the game no more, sometimes you just you got to flip the switch and things like that. But the mental aspect that it takes to our young folks, I mean, it's funny as you asked that. We had a fall sports meeting today, and I asked my offensive line coach. I said, "If you talk to such and such," he says, "Coach, I called him and he told me that he got a lot on his mind." So I called him. I called his mom, and she was like, "Well, this is news to me." So I called him. I said, "What is wrong with you?" He said, "I'm just dealing with a lot. I said, "Well, tomorrow you need to come down here so we can find out what's going on." And people always don't realize what these young boys deal with out here. Like, let me tell you this. We play in the middle of one of the worst parts of Baltimore City. We'll be on the field practicing, and gunshots will ring out. And it don't even affect the players. They just keep on practicing. They're just so used to that. We'll be in the middle of practice, gunshots will ring out. Pat, 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 pat. You know, they just do like this. They just used to it. And like that's trauma. That is trauma that you are so immune to hearing gunshots that it don't even affect you. I tell folk, Biff Foley was a longtime coach of Gilman, a good friend of mine, and I always said to him, I said, you know the difference? I could leave Dunbar and go to Gilman tomorrow and be successful. You couldn't come to Dunbar tomorrow and be successful. I said, because you're used to dealing with everything. You're not used to dealing with everything I deal with. That's just that simple. I can tell you, I can't count on one hand how many bodies I done stood over top of that played for me, that mama called me and asked me to speak at their funeral. My star quarterback right now from last year, he wanted the streets. Mm-hmm. He wanted the streets. I talked to his mom earlier today. Did everything we could do for this young man. I asked this young man, did he want to move with me? He wanted the streets. Right now, he's sitting over central booking with a gun charge and a drug charge, being charged in the adult. Mm. Some kids are going to want it. Some kids don't. Some folk just want the streets. And I keep telling them that the streets are undefeated. Streets are undefeated. And like I said, for a number of kids that we have rescued, some you just not going to do it. As much as you try to do it, they going to want to test the waters and just see everything for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's the sad part, the down part of what I do, what a lot of coaches do. Because in my profession of 20 years of being in law enforcement, I know what it could do to a young man that's not trying to do the right thing. I'm pretty sure when you go over there to that city jail and they shut that door behind you, he knew it wasn't a joke anymore.
Right.
He knew it wasn't a joke anymore. You know, young man had a player come home from college, standing on the corner with some buddies. Somebody came on the corner and blew his brains out. Mm. That's the real of it. And you try to tell these guys this stuff, but living in Baltimore City, what you want, you know, they deal with two different things. If you don't hang with them, you want your opponent. You scared. You hang with them, you got a chance of going to jail or getting killed. So they're dealing with a lot. And the only thing you can do is keep trying to help them to see the other side. Because a lot of them don't see the end of the rainbow. A lot of them don't see the other side of it. They don't see that this thing can happen. They don't see it. So we do as much as we can do as a staff. We'll rent a bus and put them on a bus and take them up to Penn State for a camp. Mm-hmm. They never seen outside of Baltimore. They never seen what a college campus looked like. So we go up to see the whiteout game, you know, the Penn State whiteout game. Go down to Maryland, you know, see a game. Go down to Bowie, take them up to Morgan. You know, we take them places to let them see like this is reality. You know, this doesn't have to be far-fetched. You could get this. So that's what we deal with our guys to try to save them. But they angry. And it's not even just about the football half the time. They angry because of life. Mm. They angry because of life. A lot of them feel that life owes them something. They feel it owes them something. And they don't want to do what they have to do in order to be successful sometimes. So all we can do is keep trying to put it in them to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's definitely rough. Just kind of have to manage that trauma from the kids. and just kind of, you know, as for many success stories you have, you probably can run down a list of all the ones that weren't as successful, the ones that ones you had to stand over top of, you know, and say parting words to their families and different things like that.
Exactly. And I can tell you, like, even now, the young guy. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen, like, we would get calls. This is the police side of it. We would get calls of a dead body in a school. Our school playground early in the morning was killed that night, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget responding to the school and seeing the dead body in there. So you try to get this stuff up. Before kids start coming to school, elementary school kids walk by a dead body and don't even faze them. And I'm thinking, like, damn, if this was my daughter would need counseling today. Mm-hmm. Like, they just walk by the body and don't even affect them. And that's deep. That is really deep.
Absolutely. So, I mean, with all that trauma that you get it on both sides, honestly, because you get it from the police side and you get it from the coach side. So how do you, like, what do you do to kind of help manage those ideas and those things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis?
It's just balance. I mean, all I do is keep telling them, like, I don't want to deal with you on the law enforcement side. Mm-hmm. So you got to do what you got to do on the athletic side. You got to do what you got to do in school. You know, it's not even about, I just want them to succeed because they're good kids. I just want them to succeed. And, you know, the thing is, a lot of them have never seen a positive black man. Mm-hmm. You know, I took a couple kids up to Rivals Camp last week and they stayed at my house. I ain't nowhere near rich. Got a decent house. And one of my players said to me, Coach, I swear I didn't know black people could live like this unless they were in the NFL or a rapper. And he was dead serious with that statement. Mm-hmm. And I was like, son, you can live like this. You can get a house. This is not a mansion. You can get a house. You just got to be a successful citizen and do what you're supposed to do. And you can have this house. And they just need to know that.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. AJ, do you have any other questions?
No, man. Definitely powerful, message and just powerful position that you're in. And it's so important that, we praise brothers like yourself because you wear multiple hats and you're dealing with lives of tomorrow. You're dealing with our young men of tomorrow and the other, children in the school that you interact with, man. So definitely appreciate you and the work that you're doing and love to see it. Love to see it.
You guys, like I said, thank you guys for having me on, man. Like I said, it's stuff that needs, it's going to take everyone. It's going to take everyone to save, to save us, to save this generation, to save young black guys. It's going to take all of us. And it's so easy to get caught up in that street. It's so easy to get caught up. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype and things like that. But like I tell them, and lastly, I could tell you this. I'll never forget this. I remember, and I talked about the pact that my granddaddy had on me. Mm-hmm. I remember, and like I said, my granddaddy, I mean, this might have been the early 80s. I had said something like, man, I can't do that because of the white man. White man don't want me to. Mm-hmm. And my granddaddy looked at me and said, what are you talking about? He said, I can make that statement, but you can't. Mm. He said, you can do whatever you want to do. Ain't no white man stopping you from doing what you want to do. He said, see, I can make that statement. I was born in 1920. He said, you was born in 1974. You can't make that.
He said, you ain't earned a right to make that statement.
And that's exactly what he told me. He said, don't you ever make that statement again. You can go any bathroom you want to go to. You can sit down and eat anywhere you want to sit down and eat. You can go to any college you want to go to. You can sit anywhere you want to sit on the bus. I'll never forget my granddaddy told me that. He said, I don't care who you listening to or who told you that. He said, you better not ever make that statement again because I can make it. You can't. Mm-hmm. And that's the type of stuff I try to tell my guys. Stop having people telling you can't do stuff that you can do. Stop having people tell you can't do stuff that you can do. And that's the problem with a lot of guys. They don't know. They don't know. they don't understand the potential they have to do anything that they want to do. And the thing is, like I tell them, college ain't for everybody. College wasn't for my son. My son went to college for one semester, and it wasn't for him. He worked at a country club, and he wanted to be a chef. So the country club paid for him to go to be culinary art school. And I tell my guys, I don't care what you do, long as you are doing something to be productive and to be able to earn a living. And that's what it is. College is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But you need to understand what you want to do, because in the blink of an eye, you can do the wrong thing and your whole life will be shattered that quick. Yeah. And that's what I tell them.
Absolutely. Well, just want to thank you once again for taking time out of your schedule, just kind of consenting for this interview, and so that we can just kind of get this message out here and just kind of share, some of the things that you experience and just kind of things that you experience on a year-to-year basis as a coach and as a police officer, and just kind of like the different roles that you have So thank you again. I want to thank everybody out there who's joining us for Unapologetically Male, where we are talking about surviving society stigmas, standards, and systems. Once again, if you want to stay in contact with us, follow us. Our business page at J Pope and Connections. You can follow us there. You can follow me on my Facebook, Dwayne Pate. You can follow Emilio Stewart. You can also follow my YouTube page at D Pate Jr. To kind of get the interviews that we post on Mondays. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Special shout out to Jennifer Pope, J Pope and Associates, J Pope Connections on Facebook and Instagram. So once again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next Monday. Thanks,
Coach. Good luck, man.
Thank you,
Coach.
All right.
Appreciate you.